Absolutely. But in order to do so, we have to take a different approach. We have to treat the cause of multiple sclerosis. And in this video, I am going to share with you the steps that I have taken and many of the wellness champions have taken to not only stop the progression of multiple sclerosis, but also to recover from multiple sclerosis and to live our very best life. If we haven't met, my name is Pam Bartha, and I'm the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. And I'm happy to report to you that I have been able to live free of multiple sclerosis now for over 35 years. And I'm going to share some amazing successes from our wellness champions that have also followed these same steps. And so this is a very different approach than our standard of care, the standard medical way that we would treat multiple sclerosis. And we're going to talk a little bit about that first because it really helps us to understand why, I was diagnosed over 35 years ago and why we still don't have a cure for multiple sclerosis, why there's all of these new drugs and we're still suffering, we're still becoming more and more disabled. We are not stopping the progression of multiple sclerosis. And so let's first talk about the system that we have in place right now. So the Multiple Sclerosis Society, it's a not-for-profit organization, and they are considered to be leaders in research for multiple sclerosis in trying to find a cure. And that is globally. So this is like a global group that are really on the cutting edge of research, multiple sclerosis research, with respect to treatments. And on their website, they share the Multiple Sclerosis Society exists because people have multiple sclerosis. Our vision is a world free of multiple sclerosis. Everything we do is focused so that people affected with MS can live their best life and stop MS in its tracks and restore what was lost and end multiple sclerosis forever. So that sounds really good. And they say that we are more than an organization. And so it sounds great, but in reality, if you do have multiple sclerosis, you know that there is no cure. And that when we take the MS drugs, sometimes we feel a lot worse on them. A lot of people do, and they just don't take them for that reason. But the drugs are not working for us, and that's because we're using the wrong approach. But what they do is they are really connected with our standard of care. This is how MS is treated around the world. So this is like universities that are conducting research. The MS Society is funding them. And you'll notice that in their mandate here that it's all drug research. So their plan, the MS Society plan to stop multiple sclerosis, there's 3 prongs, or it's a three-step approach. Number 1, to prevent the immune system from attacking myelin. And now they have 12 disease-modifying drugs for people that are suffering with or from relapsing, remitting multiple sclerosis. So 12 disease-modifying drugs. And now in the last few years, they've also introduced the stem cell transplant, which is HSCT. And the aim of this transplant is to stop the immune system from attacking nerve tissue, the myelin sheath around the nerves. And that is the whole premise of our standard of care treatment for multiple sclerosis right now. It's really to treat, or to, I should say, suppress the immune system, because they really believe that the immune system is the problem. And that is the whole basis of all the treatments that we're using for multiple sclerosis at this time. So they've got 12 drugs for treating relapsing remitting. They have the stem cell transplant, and now they have also introduced certain drugs that could potentially be helpful for progressive multiple sclerosis, because in the past they did not have anything for progressive. So basically one of them is an old chemo drug, and that old chemo drug has been repurposed for multiple sclerosis. I'm going to try not to say too many names on here. If you want my written notes, then make sure to check out livediseasefree.com, the website. By the end of the week, we always do the blog post. So there will be the shortened video that I'm doing right now, edited, shortened down, and also my written notes so that you can actually check things out yourself. So the first thing they want to do is they believe that because the immune system is attacking nerve tissue, they want to suppress the immune system. So with various drugs, right? And the very, very invasive, dangerous treatment of stem cell transplant. That's all they have. That's all they list on the MS Society website is just some drugs. Their second step in really stopping MS is to promote myelin repair. So the myelin is it's a fatty insulation around our nerve fibers, and it really helps the communication to go quickly between our brain and our body, so that the messages can travel very, very quickly. So the second step is to promote myelin repair. And this is what they feel the immune system is attacking our myelin sheath around our nerves. And that's why we have MS, and that's why there's nerve damage, and that's why there is disability and paralysis and numbness and all the rest. So, again, to promote myelin repair, it's really interesting that they're recommending, or they're doing a study actually of two different drugs. One is metformin, which is a drug used to treat diabetes. It actually lowers blood sugar levels. So that keep that in the back of your mind as we continue to talk. So they think that metformin could be helpful for MS because it lowers the blood sugar level. And also, there's an antihistamine that they're studying because they feel that this antihistamine can also promote myelin repair. And that is clemastine. Clemastine. So that there's a huge, I've talked a lot about antihistamines and why they could potentially be helpful for MS. We're going to dissect all of this information that I'm sharing with you now in a couple of minutes. So again, the first step is they want to stop the immune system from attacking the myelin. They want to suppress the immune system. The second one, they want to repair the myelin that was damaged with drugs. Everything is with drugs. Interesting. And then the third is to protect our nerves from damage. And again, you'll never guess what the treatment would be is drugs. So they're doing a clinical trial on a cholesterol drug, and they're thinking that it could potentially be helpful for protecting the nerves from future damage, because they believe that our immune system has just gone haywire and it's attacking our body, our nerve tissue for no reason. And so we have to take drugs to protect our nerves from our immune system. I hope that sounds a little fishy to you, because it really does to me. So this cholesterol drug, it's again used to treat cholesterol, but they feel that it could potentially help to prevent future nerve damage. It again is immunosuppressive, so it's blocking proteins and immune cells that are released as part of the body's normal inflammation process. So we know that with multiple sclerosis and all chronic diseases, inflammation is present. And inflammation is the body's response to infection. So, the primary job of our immune system is to protect us from infections, and we call them parasites. Any microbe that lives in our body and causes us harm is a parasite. It could be bacteria, it could be fungi, it could be protists, it could be worms. So, MS is an inflammatory disease. The immune system is fighting something. They don't know what. They're just assuming that it's just attacking our nerve tissue for no reason. Before I forget, I want to share to remind you that in my masterclass training, I show you slides of Dr. Alan McDonald has been able to find Borrelia bacteria in the myelin and around the myelin of nerve cells. So do you think that if the job of the immune system is to attack and to destroy the enemy, which are parasites, and there is some infection in or around the myelin sheath of the nerve, do you think there could be a little damage from the immune cells going after the infections? Or do you think even the parasites, the bacteria, could cause some damage to the myelin? This is all common sense, and this is really what we need to do, is use common sense. Trust your common sense. It's very simple. So instead of treating parasites, like the inflammation, think of it like war. So your immune system is fighting parasites, It's just like when you have soldiers fighting the enemy, you end up with a war. You end up with damage. You end up with casualties, etc. So that's what's happening, and that's what inflammation is. So when you suppress your soldiers, when you suppress your immune system, you're not going to have as much war, right? And that's their whole premise is they're like, well, we just want to prevent the war. How about we go after the enemy? How about we get rid of the enemy? Then we won't have a war either. And that would be much more productive and much safer. So there you have it. That is their three-pronged approach, their three-step approach to stopping the progression of multiple sclerosis. And every one of those three steps is drugs, using drugs. And so when you really look deeper, and I've shared lots of research on this, please review the McDonald criteria, the 2017 McDonald criteria. This is really how we diagnose and how we treat multiple sclerosis around the world. And when you look at that paper with this panel of experts that have decided how we are going to diagnose and treat MS, go to the very back pages and you'll see like a page and a half of sponsorship from the very companies that are selling the drugs to treat MS. And these are the disease-modifying immunosuppressive drugs. I think that's a little bit of a conflict of interest personally. They're the ones that are funding the way that we're treating MS, that we're using their treatments, etc. So that is all that they have offered. And I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis over 35 years ago. Nothing has changed. We are still suppressing the immune system. You would think that if that was really the best way to recover, then we would have recoveries from these treatments, and we don't. But the good news is that there is a better way. We do have enough evidence and proof that MS is an infectious disease caused by a parasitic infestation. And this is backed by science. This is coming out all over the world. I've shared lots of research on our website, livediseasefree.com. Go under research, you'll see different studies. I've shared the abstract, so you can do your own due diligence. You can go to PubMed do a Google search for PubMed, which is a medical database. You can just type in MS and infections, MS and dysbiosis, meaning we're out of balance. We have too many disease-causing parasites and not enough health-promoting microbes. Parasites are never health-promoting. And so it's very, very important that, number one, the science is there. And we could have a lot more science, but there's no money in this science. There is no benefit to the pharmaceutical companies to figure out which parasites we're dealing with, because the parasite drugs are old, they've lost their patents. If you were in certain countries, underdeveloped countries, they could cost pennies. If you're in a developed country, they cost a lot more than they should because they're old, safe drugs that have been around their safety profiles are well known. And again, they're not a patentable product. They're not like the newer, or I should say the older drugs that are repurposed, the old chemo drugs that are repurposed and being sold or used for treatment, and they're over $100,000 a year. I've heard reports of, some of them like $40,000 per month, $30,000 to $40,000 per month, or even up to $200,000 per year for another one. These are like cash cow products, right? And everybody would love to have products like this, but honestly, I think most of us wouldn't want to have a product like this unless it really made a difference, and if it was justified. Is it really justified to repurpose an old drug and charge that kind of money? That's up to you to decide. I can't make that decision for you, but I know what I think. So the better approach is to follow the science, and the science that is maybe not being shown to our doctors, but it's out there. Thanks to the internet, we have access to it. And I share a lot of that in my masterclass training. So make sure to check out the masterclass training after this event that we're together here. And so because MS is an infectious disease, then if we help the immune system, if we support the immune system, and then we also treat the parasites, then we have natural immune modulation. We have a natural decrease in inflammation. We stop the progression of multiple sclerosis. And then we go back to a time when we felt really good. We can go back to, like for many of us, we've had the parasites for years. So even before our diagnosis, some of us, it took years to get a diagnosis. And when you treat the parasites, a lot of people say, I can't remember feeling this well. And so that's the key, is to really, really focus on the cause. It doesn't require a lot of supplements. It does not require a ton of testing. It does not require hundreds of thousands of dollars. It requires supporting your body, feeling better with very simple things. And I'm going to talk about that now. And then treating the parasites over multiple treatment cycles, and then enjoying the amazing ability of our body to heal itself. So, what I will share with you is that when you treat the parasites, I can never promise full recovery, but I will tell you that you'll have a lot more recovery than you ever thought possible. And many of you will have full recovery. We have students that have been in a wheelchair for over 5 years, up to 10 years. I can't promise they're going to walk, but when they treat the parasites well enough, their ankle loosens. They maybe had drop foot before. They no longer have drop foot. They're able to stand. Then they're able to wall walk. Then they're able to also do squats in the doorway and get on their bike. And so the exciting thing is that if we could get more research in this area, if we could support the work of Dr. Alan McDonald, he's probably, I would say, the one that's the front runner in putting out this information, this research, then we could get the whole standard of care to be treating parasites with her first MS attack, with the first huge attack we have. And then we can avoid treatments. We can just get back to our life. We can just close this chapter of our life and get on with it. And so, what I will share with you, because I work with students all over the world, is that there is a real growing interest in parasites, even with many doctors, definitely with integrated practitioners, but even with GPs. So maybe not the neurologist, some yes, but maybe a less percentage, but from your regular GP, much, much better. So the steps, let's talk about the steps. So the Live Disease-Free plan is something that I have developed over, I would say, many, many years. Like, again, I was diagnosed with MS 35 years ago, so how far do you want to go back? And at first, it was myself just digging and researching, and it's truly by the grace of God that we've learned this. I do ask for a lot of help. I do ask God for help, and He has been incredibly faithful, as He always is. And it did take diligence and work on my part, but I learned very early on that MS was an infectious disease, but I didn't know all the different types of parasites. We knew about Candida 35 years ago. There were medical doctors that wrote books about Candida causing all kinds of, being involved in all kinds of chronic disease. And as they treated Candida, then people recovered from MS and other diseases. And I've talked about that in other videos. I'm not going to talk about that here, but at least 4 books by medically trained doctors, I call them hero doctors, 40 years ago, talking about parasites causing chronic disease. So I started by learning about Candida and treating Candida. And then years later, we learned about Lyme disease. We learned about Borrelia and the co-infections of Lyme disease. And then more recently, we've learned about the roundworm infestation. We've learned about the filarial, the very small roundworms, the nematodes in the central nervous system that Dr. Alan McDonald found in every single MS subject that he studied. Lots of them, mating in clusters, a lot of their waste there. And they were infected with, those worms were always infected with Borrelia, which is the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. So these worms cause a lot of damage on their own in our central nervous system, but they also are infecting us with Lyme disease. So if you have multiple sclerosis and you think you have Lyme disease, maybe the doctor has tested you for that, please consider that you may have nematodes that are also infecting you with Borrelia. And if you just focus on treating Borrelia, you'll keep getting reinfected. So you got to treat big to small, the big parasites down to the small parasites. So we learned about the filarial worms from Dr. Alan McDonald. We also learned about the tapeworms. the tapeworm larval cyst. This is called neurocysticercosis. This is something that is well known with the CDC, with maybe not our GPs, but definitely in the scientific community, where tapeworm larvae, the immature form, they can get into the central nervous system and they end up in this like a little sac or bladder, and it's absolutely disgusting. And when I've watched videos when they take them out of animals, the animals all of a sudden don't have the neurological symptoms of MS. They don't have the balance issues. They don't have the paralysis, the numbness, all the symptoms of MS. They're able to function again. So if we do have the tapeworm larval cysts, or even the developing tapeworms, actually the worms that are developing themselves, which Dr. Alan McDonald also found in the central nervous system of MS patients. So we know about all of that. We know about Lyme. We know about and protists. So there's Babesia is one of the protists that's really common in multiple sclerosis. And maybe you don't have MS and you're listening, you're interested in parasites. Just know that people that have MS, ALS, PLS, Parkinson's, we are just more infested than you. Maybe you have an autoimmune disease. Maybe you really suspect parasites. I'm sure that's what you're dealing with. But just know that those of us that have neurological diseases, these really terrible chronic diseases, we're more infested. It's you have less parasites, maybe a few different ones than we do, but that's why you really want to treat them before you end up with a serious neurological degenerative disease. Because the more infested we are, the more work it is, right? And we can never promise full recovery, but again, we can have more recovery than we thought possible because so much is still in the inflammation stage and it's not permanent damage to the myelin sheath. And that, I hope that you heard me, because that's a really big nugget of hope for you, is that what we're observing in our students is that although we may think that it's permanent damage to the nerves, much of it is inflammation, and that can be reversed. We can reverse inflammation. So that is so exciting. So let's talk about the Live Disease-Free Plan. So the Live Disease-Free Plan is very unique because it's the only plan that I'm aware of that is helping you to treat the cause of chronic disease. And you're participating in it. You're learning this skill. There's many things that you can do on your own, and this is the most cost-effective way to recover from chronic disease and also from parasites, and they're causing the chronic disease. So it's teaching you how to take charge of your health. It's teaching you how to play that active role in your healthcare so that you can actually reach your health goals. Many of you have worked with different integrative doctors. You've gone from practitioner to practitioner. You've tried many different things. People have reported to me that they've wasted or spent up to $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 on their health, and they're still sick. So does it have to cost that much money to get better? No. You have to know what you need to do, and that's what we help you to do in the Live Disease-Free Plan. And so with this plan, it's very, very specific, and this comes from the experience of working with hundreds of students all over the world for close to 10 years now. So the first step is the Live Disease-Free diet. Very important that before we start treating, we want to be feeling better. We want to, two-part, we want to make the parasites less active. That is a natural way to support immune modulation. And then we also not only just want to make them more quiet, but we want to feed the body. That's really super important. So the Live Disease-Free diet is a way that we can really start to feel better. And it's miraculous. Like if you get and the whole premise is to get your carbs low enough. So when your carbs are low enough, people notice, number one, that their bladder function improves significantly. Instead of getting up several times throughout the night, they might get up once or twice throughout the night. Then they also notice that they're sleeping better. They're able to fall asleep and stay asleep. And so they're feeling more refreshed in the morning. They're feeling happier. Their brain fog starts to clear. They can notice less spasms, muscle spasms, more strength in their legs. So they can have a lot of symptom improvements with just the diet. That's not getting rid of the parasites, it's just making them more quiet, producing less poisons. The immune system doesn't have to work as hard. That's why we're feeling better. Then we want to support the body. We want to have daily bowel movements. Definitely very important that we're sleeping at least 8 hours per night. So we're doing things to encourage the sleep, the daily bowel movements. We're looking at our blood work. We're making sure that our physiology is good, that we're not dealing with, liver or kidney issues, that our blood iron or our iron, or whether it's hemoglobin or ferritin, our thyroid function and vitamin D. So just some basic things like your basic blood work from your GP, nothing else, just simply that. So we support the body. We make sure that we don't have mold in our environment, and also wireless radiation. So the wireless radiation is from our computers, our cell phones, appliances. Like, let me know if you have any wireless appliances in your home. They're called smart appliances, and they're all giving off wireless signals. And then now we have 5G. We have 5G satellites. We have 5G transmitters in our areas. So we're being bombarded with the wireless radiation, and that radiation, it makes the parasites grow faster and produce more poisons. So we want to try to minimize that as much as we can, especially when we're sleeping. So we do work on other things in the environment, but the mold and the radiation are two big ones that's really important to deal with before we start to treat. So we're following the diet, we're working through the checklist for healing, we're sleeping, we're having daily bowel movements, we're feeling a lot better. Now we can start to treat. And this is where we will, as we're figuring out which of the parasite drugs are most helpful for us, we'll start with herbs, antimicrobial herbs. Raw garlic is amazing. Don't start it until you have done the prep phase successfully. Start with smaller amounts. Again, everything I'm sharing with you is for educational purposes. When we work with our students, we make sure that they're safe. We get them to check things with their doctor, and never introduce. So for example, raw garlic is a blood thinner. If you're on a very strong blood thinner, you want to be very careful, right? You don't want to have your blood too thin. So that's why you have to work with somebody. But the raw garlic is incredibly anti-parasitic. And then there's different herbs. We also use an oxidizing agent, which is bringing oxygen into your body. Then you can start slowly bringing that in, and people can start feeling a lot better. We do enemas with the oxygen type agent, and I can't say the name of it here because we would be censored, but you can check out on Rumble or even on our website, Live Disease Free, oxygen therapies for treating parasites. I can talk more freely on our website and on Rumble. LiveDiseaseFree.com, and Rumble is just how it sounds, RUMBLE. I do have a channel on Rumble, and there is the videos that are more edited, and topics that are a little sensitive, a little spicy, that I can't talk about here. So in order to treat parasites, let me backtrack. So we're using herbs we can start with, and we can use the oxidizing agent, and then we can get energy tested. So with our practitioner, we'll get samples of the commonly prescribed parasite drugs. Then we will take them to a different type of practitioner who can do energy testing. It's not very expensive, maybe a couple of $100s. And they're going to, because we don't have good stool tests, we don't have good DNA tests, they probably pick up about 10% of the parasites we're dealing with. So they're going to miss what's causing our symptoms. So the energy testing is not an exact science, but it's a piece of information. So how do we determine the game plan to treat these parasites that are causing MS? Because this is the way to stop the progression of MS. Number one is we look at your health history. We look at the health history of your parents. We look at your diagnosis. We look at your symptoms. And then we also look to see which parasite drugs you test well for. In most developed countries, it's pretty easy to find somebody who does energy testing these days. But in some countries I work with students, they don't. And so then their practitioner will just use some commonly prescribed different medications, that parasite drugs that would really help very often with people that have MS. Because we know about the roundworms, sometimes there's tapeworms, sometimes there's flukes, etc. So the diet is number one. supporting the body, number 2. Then we start treating with herbs while we're getting access with our practitioner and getting prescriptions. And then when we start treating, because we've done so much prep work and we're feeling a lot better before we started treating, like you'll feel better than you have felt in a long time, maybe years, just with a prep phase. And so then, because you've done that, you're going to tolerate the treatments better. You're going to tolerate the herbs better. You're going to tolerate the parasite drugs better. And so when we're taking them, this is where we work together with doctors and pharmacies, and you're going to introduce things slowly, one at a time. But you want to use effective, like all the doctors I've studied under, they say that if you use suboptimal doses of the parasite drugs, you can really run into trouble. They will move away from it. They will move into your liver gallbladder meridian. They will move towards your pancreas. They will avoid the poison. They don't like it. But if you use effective doses, then you will kill them. And so our students generally will test well for 3 to 5 parasite drugs. And so they're not going to take them all at once, but we show them, and their doctor helps them also to figure out, how to take them so that they don't end up with a Herx reaction. We don't want a Herx reaction. There's never a benefit. Really, that is that most of the time it's just that you're not using the right treatment and you're aggravating parasites, or you're treating too aggressively, but it's usually that you're not using the right treatments. When you're using the right treatments, you'll notice symptom improvements in as little as 4 days. You'll start to go, oh, wow, this is a lot easier. I haven't been able to do that for a long time. If you're not noticing symptom improvements, then we have to, number 1, go back and say, okay, did you follow the prep phase well enough? Did you have a lot of symptom improvements with the prep phase? If not, you have to go back and do that, because the parasite drugs are not a magic cure. And again, we're using a combination of oxygen, parasite drugs, and herbs, plus the prep phase. All of that together is where you'll notice that you'll be going, I cannot believe this. This is amazing. So we talked about the diet, supporting the body. We talked a little bit about the treatments. I have talked about the treatments in other videos, and there's a lot of different treatments. So there's various treatments that will treat roundworms. There's albendazole, there's mebendazole, there is Alinea that will treat protists and different types of roundworms and some tapeworms. There's praziquantel, which will also treat the tapeworms and the flukes. There is niclosamide. There is, what's the other one I wanted to share? Pyrantel palmate, ivermectin. So there's a lot of different parasite drugs. Those are just a few. There's thiabendazole, there's levomizole. There's many different parasite drugs, and fenbendazole. So how do you know which parasite drug is the best for you? The energy testing, plus, again, those 5 criteria that we use, that's what we're using right now with our students. And that's really helping them to hone in to an effective treatment plan. But I was just speaking with one person today, and he's been using different parasite drugs on his own. And I told him, I said, you're using like a very, very, very low dose that's doing nothing. It's much lower than the doctors recommend. And you run the risk of making the parasites resistant to the treatments. And then if you make them resistant, you don't have a treatment in the future, because you will be exposed to these parasites for the rest of your life. They're part of life. They're in our pets. They're on our food. They're in our soil. We don't have to be paranoid about it. But and I just wanted to share, I was talking with another person today, and she works with a lot of horses, and she has her own horses. She boards horses, and she's like, there was a time when I wanted to go all natural with the horses and no more medications, didn't want to use the parasite drugs with them. And then she noticed that the horses started to kind of be more sickly. They just were not the same. And they were going through a lot more feed, because the parasites are freeloaders. And so the horses would be eating all this food, and then they had to keep eating more and more, and they just were not putting weight on. Then she went back to treating the parasites in the horses, and they were putting weight on, they're healthy. And she's like, boy, did I ever learn a lesson. But the crazy thing is that she has never treated herself effectively. And I said, have you seen worms in the stool of horses? And she says, oh, yeah, especially little ones. And so, like, I've talked to different vets that have horses and other animals, and it's like, so you're an expert at helping to treat parasites in other animals, but have you ever treated parasites in yourself? And they're like, no. And I said, does that make sense? And they're like, no. So in the developed countries, there has been this, I don't know, like, I think it's intentional. I really do. Not from our doctors, but from who's training our doctors, an intentional perspective that parasites are not a problem in developed countries. Parasites are just a third world country or an underdeveloped country problem. And you can only get parasites if you travel. Nothing could be further from the truth. If you have animals, you know that you should be deworming them, right? We know that they're in our soil, they're in our water, but we should be treating our water, right? If we live in a city, they should be treating the water with chlorine or other, usually chlorine. And so maybe we're not drinking raw water most of the time, hopefully never, but they're still all around us. And if you eat in a restaurant, even somebody preparing your food, maybe they went to the bathroom and they didn't wash their hands. So it's nothing that we have to be paranoid about, but it's something that we have to become aware of. So there was a time in our life, like for myself, very often before the age of 10, where I was on a lot of antibiotics. And those antibiotics, they really wipe out the ecosystem of health promoting microbes that are supposed to be there, that's supposed to act as our natural defense to protect us from the parasites. So then, when we've lost our natural defense, that barrier, the parasites are then able to get a grip. They're able to establish themselves on the lining of our intestines, and then there's much more room. We know that some health promoting microbes, they can produce all kinds of things that would discourage the growth of parasites, and if they're not there, parasites can just grow. And then we eat a lot of processed carbs, and eating sugar and all of these really processed carbs that turn into sugar in our blood, it really feeds these parasites like putting gas on a fire. So remember, I talked about metformin, which is the diabetes medication that lowers blood sugar level. If it lowers blood sugar level, do you think that the parasites might not be as active? Absolutely. I wonder if that's why metformin could potentially be helpful. And then any antihistamine. So back in the day, I knew of two neurologists that were prescribing polyramine to their MS patients. This was 35 years ago or 40 years ago. And they had MS. They were managing MS with antihistamines and diet, like avoiding caffeine. Caffeine will stimulate the parasites, right? And so antihistamines, they will, if they're like the first generation drowsy antihistamines, they'll make us more sleepy, but they also will make the parasites more sleepy, less active. So when the parasites are less active because of the antihistamine and we're decreasing the blood sugar with the metformin, then do you think inflammation can start to go down because the parasites are less active? Yes, absolutely. And we're not feeding them as much. But we can do that naturally with the Live Disease-Free diet. We can decrease the carbohydrates naturally. So we can decrease the carbohydrates naturally. We don't need to take a medication. We can use the Live Disease-Free diet. And you'll still have better benefit from doing it that way. And it's cheaper and there's no side effects to this diet. That's the amazing thing about it. There's only benefit to it. So, as these parasites are treated effectively, this is where we find, again, people, like, they don't have constipation anymore. They don't have diarrhea anymore. They just have daily bowel movements, maybe for the first time in most of their life, because maybe they've had parasites since they were 10 years old. Myself, absolutely. They notice that their balance comes back. The stiffness goes away. The numbness, we've had lots and lots of students where their numbness goes away, and the people that are not able to, let's say they're in a wheelchair or using a scooter, those people, many of them are able to start first, like wiggling their toes. Their ankles become soft and supple again. They can move their ankles. Then they start to get a little stronger. Then they can stand. And then once they're able to stand for a few seconds at a time, then they're able to take a step. and maybe they have to use crutches at first. But the exciting thing is, again, there's more recovery for you than you thought possible. And the students are coming off their medications with the guidance of their doctor. I'm not a doctor, I'm not telling them what to do. But as they're feeling better and as they truly believe that they're treating the cause, then they're able to come off of the medication. And we're not against medications. There are certain times, like to treat parasites, that it's very helpful. Some of the meds are super helpful. If you get in a car accident, you definitely want a painkiller, right? But there's a time and a place, and it's the problem is that we're using the immunosuppressive drugs, the maintenance immunosuppressive drugs for the rest of our life, or as long as our body will handle it, and they're not curing us because our immune system is not the problem. The problem are the parasites. So mobility improves. People, we've got students that have shared, they're no longer using walkers and wheelchairs, scooters. That's the exciting thing. And you have to work with somebody so that you will treat effectively. If you just wing it and you get access to certain treatments, or even your practitioner might say, okay, I'll give you 3 pills of this drug, right? And you take that and it's not really going to do anything. It's really, really important to treat effectively. Once you become symptom free, once, like, not just stopping the progression. So this is not just about stopping the progression, but this is about recovery. So when you've come to the place where you've had as much recovery as you can have, or full recovery from most people, then it's all about maintaining that health and prevention. So are you going to be exposed to parasites again? Yes. Could it be that maybe you thought you did enough treatment cycles, but maybe you've got to do a couple more? Absolutely. But you won't be thrown into a full MS attack. What if you haven't treated enough, you might just notice that you're a little bit more tired, or your gut is a little off, and it's time to start treating again. So we want to build back those good health promoting microbes. We want to build back our natural defense, and we really like sauerkraut to do that. Sauerkraut is an amazing superfood, especially when you can make it yourself. And if you do a wild ferment where you're just taking organic vegetables and you're allowing the microbes, the health promoting microbes that are naturally occurring on those vegetables, to reproduce and reproduce, it's like kind of like a concentrated probiotic. Start with small amounts. Start with, like, if you're really sick, start with like a teaspoon or a half a teaspoon, with everything low and slow when you're sick. Just don't overdo anything. With the garlic, when you're at the place where you're feeling better and you start bringing that in, we start with like a half a teaspoon, and we make sure that we have it during our meal, not on an empty stomach, because raw garlic is hot. And if you just put it on an empty stomach, you could throw up. So this is why you need guidance through this, so that you're doing things in a systematic, strategic way. And that's what we do with the Live Disease Free plan. We're doing it in a very ordered manner because we know, because we've worked with hundreds of students, and this is what gives them the quickest results and the most success, because you want to have as much recovery as possible. So treating parasites once we're well, it's really wise to treat parasites once or twice a year. Listen to your body. If you have high energy and you have no brain fog and you're sleeping well, no signs of allergies, no signs of mood swings, no, like if you're still a woman and you're going through, you haven't gone through menopause and you have your menses and there's no PMS, and you just like feel high energy all day, then you're good. But if you're finding that you're getting a little bit, like sleep is interrupted, you're not having the same energy, maybe cravings, that's another big one, then it's time to go, okay, well, I'm going to just do my yearly or semi-annual parasite treatment. And again, the best way to do that is by incorporating the parasite drugs plus the oxidizing agent plus the herbs all together. We do like the herbs for smaller parasites like the bacteria, protists, etc. And there's certain herbs that are liposomal, so they'll go deeper into your tissue. But we do find that with the larger parasites, that the parasite drugs are incredibly helpful. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to go to you. Actually, I'll go to a few questions, and then I want to end it with just sharing some amazing wellness champion recovery testimonies. And we do have a video that you can actually watch I put them all together. I did that a little while ago. There's a blog post about that. So you can see their faces. But if you want to listen to them, you just go to a playlist on YouTube, you go to our website, and you'll be able to find them speaking, and grab some Kleenex because you'll have happy tears. All right, George, hi. Hi, Graham. You're so welcome. Thank you so much for your kind words. Hi, Chris. This is this is your answer. If you're not treating parasites, we're going to be starting a new year right away. Like, how do you want 2024? What do you want to do next year? This, if you're following a plan that's very like step by step and very strategic, it's not going to take you years to recover. It's going to take maybe months. It depends on how sick you are. For people that are newly diagnosed, or maybe they haven't got a diagnosis yet, if they take the right steps, we've had a lot of students that are able to become symptom free even before they start treating, or virtually symptom free even before they start treating. But if they started to eat the wrong foods again and they go high stress, no sleep, those kind of things, we will activate the parasites more again. That weakens our immune system. So it's really, really important that we, number one, treat the parasites well enough, and then we manage that for the rest of our life. That's how I've been able to live MS free for 35 years. And we have some students that are getting close to 10 years now that took my program about 10 years ago. Melissa is one of them. She now has a health food company. She also wrote a book. You can hear her speak. She's buffed, like she's more fit than I am, that's for sure. But and then we've got, I'll talk about the successes in a minute. So Joanne, yes, like that certain drug, you can read her comment, is $54,000 per infusion. And I can't remember if it's every 6 months. So that's over $100,000 a year. Hi, Neva. How long should we treat parasites? Forever? No, once you're well, then you might do it once or twice a year. Maybe you'll do it once a year. It depends on a lot of factors. It depends on how infested we were. Like, we know that some of these worms can lay 200,000 eggs in a day. So they're going to be living under biofilms. They're going to have, immature forms tucked inside of us. So we definitely want to treat for over a few treatment cycles. Even, I always say, like, once you feel symptom free, treat at least 1 or 2 treatment cycles after that. And then if you don't for a while, you'll know if you've treated long enough. And it's not like you're going to get full on MS, but you might just find that your gut is off. Your energy isn't quite the same, right? So, and then after that, it's like, are you a high achiever? Like, once you get your health back, like, are you the kind of person that does a lot? Are you the kind of person that has a lot of animals in your life? Maybe you work in the dirt a lot. Maybe you do landscaping, or you love gardening, or right. Do you eat in restaurants a lot? So do you eat sushi? I would not eat sushi. Like, I love sushi, but I don't eat it, especially, I don't know if there would be cross contamination, but that's a perfect way to get worms. And yes, they're supposed to freeze it, and yes, it's supposed to kill all the eggs, but t- the different doctors that I study under, they're like, this is a perfect, and you can actually see videos of people that got huge tapeworms, etc., from sushi. So those are the kind of factors that will determine how often we need to treat. If you're just a very relaxed person, you're not exposed to a lot of parasites, you don't have to really work, you can just exercise and manage stress and keep your immune system high, then you might need to treat once every couple of years if you've treated well enough in the first place. That's the key. And you'll know if you've treated. Like, number one, you won't see the parasites coming out anymore. And I should say, for those of you that are new, like, and this is like to humble myself, like, I have literally passed a 30-inch long worm. I believe that it's a roundworm. I don't know for sure if it's a tapeworm or roundworm. I could easily have tapeworms too. Intestinal flukes. I've passed many intestinal flukes that are at least 3 inches or bigger. They're wider, they're flat. They cause a lot of inflammation. I've seen a lot of intestinal fluke pictures from our students, but it's really common that our students are passing, worms that are over 2 feet long, and they always notice significant symptom improvement. So those worms carry their own smaller parasites in them. And then when you when they live in you, they those big worms, they eat your food, so you become deficient, just like those horses that were not gaining weight. So we become deficient. We can't put weight on. I was always skinny all my life. And then they produce a lot of poisons, which is really causing the inflammation. They cause damage to our tissue, which is again inflammation. And they carry their own smaller parasites. So, for example, what Dr. Alan McDonald found, those roundworms in the central nervous system carrying Borrelia, the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. If you just focus on treating Lyme disease and you don't treat the bigger parasites, you'll never clear the Lyme disease. If you just focus on Candida, and Candida is fungi, and fungi are the recyclers of the world. They're present when our immune system is suppressed from the other parasites. They're also present when there's a lot of garbage, right? From the waste material from those bigger parasites, the bacteria that comes, the other microbes that they release that die in us. So the fungus is the cleanup crew. And so if you just focus on treating Candida, and of course that cleanup crew Candida, if it's too abundant in our body, they do produce lots of poisons that make us feel awful too. So it's not a neutral cleanup crew, we want to get rid of it. But if you focus on treating Candida without dealing with the big parasites, then you're never going to clear the Candida because it's going to keep growing in the environment that is supporting it. So this is why there's a lot of thought that goes into the Live Disease-Free plan. There's a lot of experience and a lot of success. So this is a proven plan, and it's up to you to follow the steps properly. It's not hard, but you have to get your carbs low enough. You have to check off the steps. You've got to treat with effective doses in a safe manner, in a way that you can handle it. And the prep phase is really what helps you to handle it really well. Um, these parasite drugs are old. They've been around for many years. And when you treat the parasites to the point where you feel symptom-free, the parasite burden, maybe you have a little bit left, but you don't really notice it. You'll notice that when you take the parasite drugs, like they just don't even affect you. You're not going to be nauseous. Like for myself, I took 5 that I was treating with one morning, and I got called away to my family, and I forgot to eat. And then all of a sudden, an hour later, I'm like, oh, I took all 5 parasite drugs and no nausea, nothing. But when I started, yeah, it wasn't really bad, but I definitely didn't eat food. And yeah, I felt quite nauseous when I didn't eat food. So very important to eat food with treating also. So I'm just going to go to see if you guys have any questions here really quickly. Just a couple, because I've been going for quite a while here. So yes, if you want to live a long, healthy life, Neva, then you would, just like if you have a horse or a dog, for the length of their life, you are going to periodically treat parasites. That's a wise thing to do. How long should we take the parasite drug? Well, we found that we do cycles. And so normally we'll treat the roundworms for probably about 14 days, and then treating fungus for about 10 days, and then taking a week off. During the week off, the students are using herbs and the oxidizing agent, and then they'll do another cycle. So about 14 days for the larger worms, and that kind of works with a lot of life cycles of the larger parasitic worms. You're so very welcome. You're so welcome. Quick question. How do you find out if you have parasites? Sorry, how can you find out if you have parasites? You said my neurologist. So neurologists, like us humans, were programmed pretty easily. You just look at what we just went through with this last 3 years. We won't even get into that conversation because that will be censored. But when a person goes to school for over 10 years and you're taught to think a certain way, you're taught that, okay, you're training to be the expert in the world on multiple sclerosis. And all the research that we're going to show you is that multiple sclerosis is caused by your immune system attacking the nerve tissue, the myelin sheath around the nerves. So you've been trained and you've been only seeing one type of research studies from these, which are funded by the pharmaceutical companies, right? And then you're shown all of the research from the drug manufacturers. So you really believe that you're doing the best for people because this is what's accepted throughout the world. These are the leaders in MS research. And so you have a very prestigious position and one with a lot of authority. And the unfortunate thing is that when we get into that position, very often we get to be a little bit narrow minded and we can't see past what we see. And so we've not had a lot of success with neurologists. I do believe that it's really wise in a very kind, respectful manner to say to your neurologist, say, have you ever heard that MS could be caused by parasites? And don't tell them about me, tell them about Dr. Alan McDonald's research that he found roundworms in the spinal fluid of every MS subject test, not one or two or three, but 10 out of 10. He found the tapeworm larval cysts and developing tapeworms. I should say the tapeworm larval cysts in everyone, but the developing tapeworms in a couple of subjects. There's lots of years and years of research of Lyme infect the Borrelia, like over 100 years of research. I share that in my masterclass training. There's over 100 years of research of a malaria babesia type protist. So the research is there, and plant seeds, that's all I can say. So don't expect your neurologist to be positive about this because honestly, at this point in time, neurologists are just, in my humble opinion, and I'm not being mean, I'm just saying that this is what their skill set is. They are pharmaceutical representatives for the disease modifying drugs that are used to treat multiple sclerosis. They don't know anything about diet. They don't know anything about healthy, they don't recommend anything about healthy lifestyle or diet. They solely are skilled at the MS drugs. And if you like those drugs, if you feel that's your answer, that's where you go. But you will soon find that that is not the answer. And that's why don't expect a lot from your neurologist. Just if they're even open to, hear you, they're not going to believe you. But if they hear you say that and they'll go, oh, there's no way that could ever be. But then another one comes into their office and says the same thing. And then another one and another one. They're like, over the last 2 weeks, I've had 6 people tell me about this Dr. Alan McDonald finding roundworms. And they might actually look into it eventually. And especially the good doctors, the doctors that really care, they will look into it. And so that's how we change things. But we don't have to wait. We can take charge of our health right now. We can start this new year. We've had a lot of students joining the Live Disease Free plan just in the past week. And we're really excited for them because we're preparing them to get through the holidays so they don't feel worse. And then they're going to start the new year off running. They're going to start the new year off better than they are right now. And they're focused on building their plan to take back their health and their life and to start doing the things that they love to do. It is possible. Many people are doing that. And there's many books, there's more and more people that are coming forward. They are stopping the progression of multiple sclerosis without the use of disease-modifying drugs. Again, I'm not against pharmaceutical drugs. I just don't believe that suppressing our immune system is the answer, especially when we are dealing with infections, when we're dealing with parasites. Yeah, so Christy, let me just backtrack here. There's just a couple more people. So CCK never told me this. Maybe your neurologist never told you this because he's not having access to the research. And I know this because there's different groups and they're sending out, so I'm on some mailing lists and they specifically send you specific research, just the research that keeps our system status quo. So how many a day do you have to take? It really depends on what you test well for. If you don't have tapeworms or flukes, then you don't need to take treatments for those. If you don't have Lyme disease, maybe you have fungus. And that's the problem is that, we're not still at the place where we say that every single person with MS has these 5 parasites. We know that it varies. And I think it has more to do with where the parasites are located. And I explained it today to another lady. It's kind of like if you have a lawn and maybe you didn't take care of the lawn and it got too dry, and so the grass started dying and the weeds started to move in. You don't just have like one, you don't just have dandelions, right? Maybe one of them will move in quicker, but usually with a pasture that has not been maintained or a lawn that hasn't been maintained, we get a variety of weeds that move in. And that's what happens in our intestines. And that's why when we're sick, we have to consider we have dysbiosis, we're out of balance, and we need to treat various different types of parasites. So it really, but we know that there's only so many different groups. Like there's worms, there's bacteria, there's fungi, and there's protists. So, and with a lot of different treatments, they will overlap. So that is helpful too. But if you wait until we have good tests, it will take forever and ever. Like it won't be in our lifetime that we have good tests, unfortunately, because there's too much resistance to this. And yes, Christy, I will let you know which in the program, that's what I teach you, because it's really important that you know what our effective dose is for the treatments. Because if your doctor is like, well, I'll just do this amount because I'm not sure about it, but then you'll have the information to say, well, no, actually, this is what's recommended, and there's the rationale, the resources, the other doctors that are using, and so that doctor will feel confident then. So it's really important that you're using effective doses. All right, so that I'm going to just let you guys go. We've gone over an hour. So if you are at the place where this is all new to you and you've never heard that parasites could be causing whatever disease you're dealing with or whatever symptoms you're dealing with, then make sure to watch my videos. I've got a ton of videos on YouTube, Facebook. The ones on Rumble are a little bit shorter, and they are the ones that are also would be censored. So there's different information there. Our blog posts on livediseasefree.com. You can read, you can listen to the shorter versions of the videos. You can pick the topics that are important to you. I'm really proud of our blog post. It's an incredibly important educational piece that you can share with practitioners, you can share with doctors. We have lots of healthcare professionals taking our program all the time. Right now, we have a pharmacist taking our program, a homeopath. They can't get better with standard of care. Tons of nurses, chiropractors. We've had doctors take our program, physiotherapists take our program. And I'm not a healthcare, I'm just an educator. That's all that I am. I'm a teacher, and I teach you how to play that active role in your healthcare. And you'll get to a place where you're like, okay, Pam, thanks for all the free stuff. Oh, the diet is on our website too, under research, the Live Disease-Free Diet Guidelines. We also sent out last weekend an email with all of the ideas for healthy holiday meal ideas. There's lots of things you can do that are tasty, that you can eat that are tasty, that will not set you back over the holidays. So start following the diet, start feeling better. Watch the videos that I have, or go to our blog post. Then when you're at the place you're like, okay, I'm 100% convinced that's what I'm dealing with. I want to start treating. I want this next year to be the best year of my life. Then what you do is you just watch my masterclass training. And then if you would like to book a time with me, then fill out the form. You will get an email with pre-work. There's a little coach-a-thon. Listen to that, watch it. It talks about all the steps in great detail, more detail than this. And then either you can join or you can book a time with me if you still have questions. But even if you don't talk to me and you join, then I still am going to have a conversation with you, because I always speak with my new students. I want to make that connection because we're going to be working together. I want to get you off to a strong start, and I'm so excited for your future. It is possible. There is hope for you, and I want you to know that. You can stop the progression of multiple sclerosis without using pharmaceuticals to do so. I mean, to treat the parasites, but not the long-term, disease-modifying drugs. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful week. And if you enjoy what I share, please like, share, and subscribe to help us to get the word out. Take care and bye-bye for now.